Project Big Picture. Reports have come out that both Liverpool and Manchester United are pushing for the implementation of a proposed project called Project Big Picture. Former Liverpool chief executive Rick Parry is believed to be another big supporter of the idea. So if you're like me, immediately you're like, what is this? What the hell is Project Big Picture? Let me try and break it down for you as best I can. Now, I've gone around different articles, obviously pulled a little bit of information from here, a little bit of information from there, and tried to paint you guys a picture of what exactly is behind Project Big Picture, what it is all about. So, here's where we go. Premier League will be reduced from 20 to 18 teams if this was to get the go-ahead. The League Cup and the Community Shield would also be completely abolished and taken away. Now, that's a subject that we've spoken about on the channel before. Many leagues around Europe don't have two domestic cup competitions. They just have one. So when you get the likes of Jurgen Klopp and other managers coming in, sometimes, you know, Klopp's being accused of not taking the League Cup seriously as an example. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's just something that he's not used to. Maybe he's not used to these two cup competitions. Maybe he does treat it seriously. I don't know. But under these proposed plans, under Project Big Picture, the League Cup and the Community Shield would both be scrapped. And as I said, it would also see the Premier League reduced from 20 teams that we currently have now down to 18 teams. Kind of very similar, I think, to the Bundesliga. There was even talk of a potential Premier League 2 coming down the line. Again, very similar to the Bundesliga. So that would see each team have to play less games, obviously, which on the whole sounds a positive thing for managers and players being stretched in and stuff. But when you dig into it, 2 less home games for each club, therefore 2 less match day revenue for each club as well. I'll carry on because there's lots more to get through a Project Big Picture. The one club, one vote policy that currently is within the Premier League, and the FA do have a golden vote as well where they can veto stuff, along with the need for 14 clubs to agree to policy changes, that would be scrapped under Project Big Picture as well. The 9 clubs that have been in the Premier League the longest would have the majority of the power, with 6 votes needed from those 9 to make a change. So basically, the long and short of this would be that you only need 6 clubs. So let's just say the big 6 or the top 6 to vote through any proposals, and the rest of the Premier League basically wouldn't really have a say for a lot of these things. So right now, the way the Premier League is, 20 clubs, 1 club, 1 vote, and then the FA have that golden vote that I spoke about a little bit earlier on as well. This proposal would see that change, and look, it would see a change, there's no hiding from this, to benefit the top 6 clubs. It would basically mean that the top 6 clubs, which we will be a part of, could have a much bigger say in how the Premier League goes. We'll talk through this in more detail because there's still more stuff to go through, believe it or not. And I'm only touching the surface here with this. I could go on about Project Big Picture for another hour with all the little bits and pieces, but I tried to pick out the big talking points so we could go through them a little bit later on. The 9 clubs that I mentioned, that 6 of which would be needed to make any changes if that was pushed through. The 9 clubs that are linked here are the clubs that have been in the Premier League the longest. So Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Everton, Man City, West Ham, Southampton and Spurs. They would be the 9 clubs that would get this better voting preferences, and you would only need 6 of those 9 to make any changes necessary to the Premier League if Project Big Picture went ahead. I have to keep stressing that because people might be tuning in and watching this thinking, what, this has already gone through? No, absolutely not, and it may well not go through, but let's talk about more stuff involved in Project Big Picture. So under Project Big Picture, there is a bit of a trickle-down effect to lower league clubs, the Championship clubs, League 1 and League 2. The EFL would receive 25% of all annual Premier League revenue, which would be up a massive 21% from the 4% that they currently get from Premier League clubs. So it would absolutely help clubs lower down in the football pyramid. But would it be a case of, you know, short-term gain, long-term pain? It would probably benefit the top 6 or top 9 clubs. Actually, there's no probably. It would massively benefit the top 9 clubs moving forward. A £250 million payment up front to the EFL plus £100 million payment to the Football Association would also be made under these proposed changes for Project Big Picture. And there's lots of other stuff as well involved in this, but one of the things that caught my eye, and well, actually two things that caught my eye from a fan perspective, which is probably positive, although I don't hold much hope of Project Big Picture getting a nod. So 2 things that I want to talk about. They're talking about 20% maximum or £20 maximum price for any away ticket. They're also talking about minimum 3,000 away fans at every game. But that would be minimum 3,000 or 8% of the capacity, whichever is greater. So you'd have a minimum of 3,000 away fans fans, and they would never pay more than £20 for a ticket. And there's also talk of subsidising away fans' Premier League travel as well. So there is something in there for the fans, albeit is it a few crumbs maybe to get the deal over the line, I don't know. And then another interesting aspect to this means Premier League clubs could also sell 8 live games a season directly to supporters via their own club channels. So for instance, LFC TV, they could put on 8 games a season that you would go there to watch, or MUTV, or whatever the hell other channels you want out there for Premier League clubs. So that's what we went through, ladies and gentlemen. The big talking points, I suppose, 20 clubs down to a potential 18. The big 9 clubs, the clubs that have been in the Premier League the longest, would be the ones with the most voting power, and you'd only need 6 of those 9 clubs to implement any changes. Currently in the Premier League, every club has a vote. 20 clubs, 1 club, 1 vote, plus that golden vote from the FA that I spoke about earlier on as well. Let me know your thoughts on this. If you're watching this later on, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I've got to say, I don't think this is getting through. I think it's massively biased towards the bigger clubs, of which we would benefit massively. But there are some interesting things in it. If you look at the Championship and you look at below, the money that would be put down to the clubs there could absolutely help in their survival. 25% of Premier League annual revenue is a lot of money compared to the 4% that's currently gone down now. It would also see the parachute payments removed from clubs that have been relegated from the Premier League back down to the Championship, which often sees them having much bigger budgets to be able to potentially get back up there. So again, there's talk of that helping other clubs to strengthen and be able to make the Championship, League 1 and League 2 even more fair. But this is so tough because there's no denying that this is being pushed by the big 9 clubs to try and get themselves a bigger stake in the pie going down the line. And I've heard the like of Mark Palios speaking about this and others as well. It is very difficult to navigate through this. Now, to me, this just seems like a starting place for a potential conversation to be had. This doesn't look like the finished product to me. Government speaking about it in the UK today seem to suggest that it's a no-goer as well. But I want to know your thoughts on it. What do you think is good from Project Big Picture, and what do you think is bad? Do you think there's any way that this could be reshaped, perhaps? And if you're a Liverpool United fan, what do you think of the fact that we're the driving forces behind this, really? Is it more shady stuff, shady business dealings, or is it something that you think makes sense? I suppose it depends which side you're looking at this from, what your viewpoint is. I'm still digesting the information personally, so I can't really give too much of an opinion, but as of right now, if I was a Championship club or a Premier League club that isn't in this 9, I probably wouldn't be voting this through. And as I said, you need 14 of the 20 Premier League clubs to vote through any changes as things stand. And if you're already alienating 11 of the clubs and then talking about relegating another couple, it's probably not going to get through as things currently stand. But again, let me know your thoughts on it as well. I quite like the 20 club system we have, but let's see where this goes, said Rob Shepherd. Yeah, look, you can understand why managers would probably want a couple of, 4 less games in a season if it was reduced down. There is some sense to that, and it would bring us in line with the Bundesliga, but, you know, we are used to what we're used to, and when the Premier League was created, the system as currently stands is, 20 teams. You've got your 3 relegation, your 2 automatic promotion for the Championship, and then your playoff. Now, from what I can gauge, under these current plans, there's talk of in a normal season of relegation, let's say, you'd have the relegated clubs, and then the club that's third from bottom, I believe, would go into a playoff against the winner of the third, fourth and fifth teams in the Championship. So you'd imagine that the fifth and sixth or the fourth and fifth teams would have a game, and then the winner of that will play the third place team in the final, and then the winner of that will go and play the team that finished third from bottom in the Premier League in a promotion relegation playoff, I suppose, like you see in other European leagues. So you can see where parts of this has been shaped from other leagues around Europe, but at the same time, we don't like change as human beings too much. We like what we like and we are where we are, and there is no denying that this would massively favour the big clubs. Something that it doesn't sit well with me when I see it in other countries. When I see it in Spain, for instance, with Barcelona and Real Madrid, it doesn't sit well because you're almost guaranteeing a seat at the top of the table. You're almost guaranteeing your place in Europe by giving yourselves this much power. So yeah, they'll have a trickle-down effect that would massively benefit Championship clubs, but is it very short-term thinking? Because what is the Big Six now might not necessarily be the Big Six in 10 years' time. If you look at it in the future or in the past, Spurs wouldn't have been in and around the Big Six clubs if we were talking about this 10 years ago. So you can see why, again, you need Leicester. Wouldn't have been anywhere near this conversation. This could have caused Leicester perhaps to not even win the league. So I want to know your thoughts on it. It's a very divisive and tricky subject, and one that I'm glad I had the day off yesterday because it allowed me to really prep for this tonight. Brian said, it's all bad because all the good stuff they're offering is totally dependent on giving bigger teams all the power. Can't really deny that, Brian. You're pretty much spot on. 24 teams should come back, said Kate is next to the S. That is just too big, mate. That is too big. You're talking about a 46 game season there if it was a 24 team league. An extra 8 games a season in a season where, we're already struggling to get the games in as it is. What are your thoughts on the cup competitions? Do you like the idea of getting rid of the Community Shield and getting rid of the League Cup? I don't, because I told you guys before, I actually really love the League Cup. It's my favourite of the domestic cup competitions. And I'm sure if they were to get rid of the Community Shield, there will be some way that they would make sure that the revenue that would have been generated from that still goes to the FA's very good charitable cause and stuff. So let me know your thoughts on it, folks. It's definitely not straightforward, but nothing ever is in the world of football, really, is it? Weenie Boy Little Wang, that's a weird name, pal, said those clubs who generate most money should have the greatest say on what happens with that money. Seems generous, RE 25%. Should they though? I don't know, man. It just seems a bit capitalist piggy to me, if you get where I'm coming from. It's just, I don't know, I don't really have a political leaning, so I'm not a socialist, but it does seem to be something that almost stops possible progression from other teams in the long term, and guarantees that Liverpool, United and the clubs that we spoke about earlier on will be at that top table for forever, until another rule change. West Ham could drop out of the Premier League, said Sarah Marshall. They're one of the clubs, Sarah, in the 9 that we spoke about. So yeah, they would have power with the other 8 clubs involved. Liverpool, United, and who else was it? It was Liverpool, United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Everton, City, West Ham, Southampton and Spurs. They would be the 9 clubs. Maybe if they change sponsor from Carabao, it might reignite interest in the cup. I don't really know if that makes any difference. Carabao Cup, Coca-Cola Cup, Littlewoods Cup, whatever it's called. I don't know if that makes any difference, mate, to be honest. I don't know if it's the name that makes the difference. The English Bundesliga is forming people, said Raheem. There's no denying it. This could be the road to like a Premier League 1, Premier League 2 scenario, like Bundesliga 1 and Bundesliga 2 in Germany. Wonder what Klopp makes of these machinations, said Neil Davies. I'll be very interested to hear what the gaffer has to say on it, mate, and I'm sure as the week progresses and we head towards the Everton game, when he does his press conference ahead of that, I'm sure he'll probably have something to say, or at least will be asked by the journalists about Project Big Picture. So yeah, again, it will be interesting to hear what the gaffer has to say.